أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم. We were discussing introduction of Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. We had covered different aspects. Now, last time we had left the discussion. Just to recapitulate, I will recall only the points, not the discussion. The points at which we left the discussion was that Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim does not only include the beginning, but also the conclusion and what follows, the after, the happening afterwards, what will happen afterwards. So conclusion and afterwards, both these things are including in the invocation, in the prayer, when we say Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. It's not only the guidance at the beginning, but it also is the invocation for the result and what follows. Right from the beginning till the accomplishing, and it includes beginning, conducting, concluding, accepting, and also it refers to the permission. And because of this, the burden of responsibility and the result and the consequences, the burden of all these things is lightened. It becomes light. It becomes easy for the person who prays. These are the points on which we have left the discussion. Now, it's not only that it's just a discussion from my side that I say this something which is new, but in fact, now the psychologists also point out towards these points. They also point out towards these benefits when we say Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Psychologically, one feels strengthened as he is not alone. He feels that he is not alone and he is under protection. He is under custody. He is under guidance, and his guidance under the guidance all along. And even after that, there is someone to look after him. There is some power, some authority to look after him. So it all depends upon how much belief we have when we say Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. All along, Allah is with him, the person who is making such prayer, and he believes that he is being supported. Such a believer starts with, carries through, accomplishes, and leaves even the subsequent disposition or recompense to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It all depends that how he believes, how much he believes, how strongly he believes in the invocation Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. And in the beginning we had said that Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, it includes in fact the belief that one is invoking, one is beseeching the ism, which includes all the Asma'ul Husna, and which is in fact the Ismul Azam of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He is making invocation in Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim with the faith that he is invoking to the Ismul Azam of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is a great formulation. Therefore, it is a great formulation. I'm not again going to re-emphasize it or explain it, because I think we have already discussed the importance of the meaning of Ism itself. Ism of Allah being the Ismul Azam and Asmaul Husna. When we say Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, it means it includes all the Asmaul Husna. Besides being a great formulation, it is a great supplication, it's a great prayer, It's a great invocation. I'm just skipping through these points because we have been referring to these points when we were discussing. These are quite in detail. And one of the most important points is that when we say, when we dedicate, when we start in the name of Allah, it means we submit our will. It is the submission of will. If we don't have the will, if we don't submit the will, we don't have the will to submit our will to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then saying Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim once or 1,000 times doesn't have any meaning. We have to submit the will. That means that we are submitting ourselves to Allah. We are submitting our wish to Allah. And we are beginning with Ism Allah. If this part is missing, if this part is not there, then Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim will lose all its power, all the powers which we have discussed. When Ibrahim alayhi salam submitted his will to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and when he asked Ishaq alayhi salam that I've seen something in my dream, and he also submitted his will to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and he did everything, he did all this thing, he did all of these things in the name of Allah, bi-ismi Allah. What does that mean? It meant that he submitted his will to the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And when one submits his will or aligns his will to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then there is one hadith Qudsi. It says, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that you have your desire, but if you submit your desire to me, I will not only fulfill your will, your wish, whatever you want, but I will also synchronize my will to your will. It will not only you will get what you want, but you will get much more than that. I'll suffice you in that you desire. I may desire something. Even if I get something, but if it doesn't suffice me, in spite of getting it, we have failed you. We must have failed this experience. We must have gone through this experience that we get something which we desired, but when we get it, we feel that we are still deficient. It doesn't suffice me. It's something different. It is something above the desire. It's something above the desire that when the desire is fulfilled, we don't feel that it suffices me. I still feel deficient. One wants to get married. He marries. He has a wife now. He has a husband now. She has a husband now. But still they feel that it doesn't suffice them. Because each one of them has their own will, which they have not submitted to the will of God. They don't do anything lillah. I want forgiveness, everything for myself. But if my spouse, my wife, or my husband, they commit anything, or any one of them commits anything which I don't like, I'm not ready to forgive. We don't suffice each other. Even if I'm married, it doesn't suffice me. My desire is fulfilled, but it doesn't suffice me. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, I think I was trying to skip this Hadith Qudsi. You have read it many times, but I am pointing out very subtle aspect of this Hadith. The plain Hadith is that, oh my slave, you desire, but there is only that I will. You have a desire, but there will be only that thing happening that I will. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, and it can't be except that as I will. But if you submit to me in that what I will, then I will suffice you in that you desire. If we understand the philosophy of Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, it's not just that I desire and my desire should be fulfilled. Even if the desire is fulfilled, but if it doesn't suffice me, it means something is missing in this part, which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is explaining in Hadith Qudsi. You have a desire, but it is subject to my will. And if you get your desire, it will suffice you only if I will. But if you don't submit that what I will, then I will exhaust you in that you pursue. I say Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim 1,000 times. I pursue one thing every time, 1,000 times. And even if I get it, it doesn't suffice me. 4 wives people have, don't suffice them. They have all the wealth of the world, still it will not suffice them. And it can't be except that I will. We have to understand that. It can't be without except bi-ismi Allah, as He desires, bi-izni Allah, as He allows. And when it becomes the part of the character of the believer, it becomes his kirdar, his belief, his character, and it becomes the culture of the people. And they start everything with the good intention, and not only with the good intention, but every step is good because it is Bismillah. Saying Bismillah, I'm taking liquor. Saying Bismillah, I'm committing adultery. Saying Bismillah and committing wrong, it can't be. If it is, then it is a contradiction. It is not submission to the will of Allah. Every step, it has to be. And it can't be except that I will. What Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wills. We have to understand that. What He wills. He wills. What is His purpose? What is the wajah of Allah? We have to understand. And we have to then realign our work, our deed, our amal salih with the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is the best occasion where I can realign my deed with the will of Allah, that I start with Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. I realign my will with the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In simple terms, what it means, as Ibrahim alayhi salam replied, I accept, I submit. I submit. The Quran declares that nothing happens unless Allah wills. Bismillah, Allah wills. If he accepts the first thing, Bismillah, then His will is with you, His will is with me, His will is with us, then He becomes, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, that I become your hands. I take over your purpose. It becomes my purpose. But you cannot will unless Allah wills. And when He wills, we have discussed already, مَا تَشَاءُونَ إِلَّا أَن يَشَاءَ اللَّهُ. It is submission to the Shah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is aligning, syncing the intention with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's intention. As you go deeper and deeper in Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, it brings you from different directions and focuses you on one thing. Will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Verily, Allah is ever all knower. And this is the ayat, which ultimately I closed it with this ayat, as this Qudsi. Quran reveals that Sulaiman alayhi salam. Now look at the mundane affair. The statecraft is something much more beyond any personal intention or personal working. Now he's aligning his statecraft, whole matter, whole work of the state. He addressed a letter to Queen Sheba with the opening Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Quran says it. By referring in the name of Allah. He basically submitted his will. He's telling Sheba that I've submitted my will to Allah, and here in this letter I tell you that I'm submitting, reiterating that my will is submitted to the supreme sovereignty of Allah. It is a political letter. It is a letter from a politician, from a head of a state, from a ruler. The submission starts with the conduct, and not only the submission, but I tell you, he's telling the other sovereign head of a state that I tell you that when I've submitted my will to Allah, I'm starting with His will, and my conduct will be accordingly. My conduct will be accordingly. BISMILLAAHIR RAHMAANNIR RAHIM. My conduct will be in synchronization with the Shah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He made it clear that all elements of his invitation in that letter, all the diplomatic dialogue which he is opening up, he is starting with you, and all the military mission, if it follows, it will be from the fountain of his faith, which he points out in the first sentence, Bismillah, that it will spring up, it will flow from the fountain of his faith, that is Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. And she is, in fact, another aspect of this ayat coming in the surah is that Sheba got the point. She understood what he means by writing Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim at the head of the letter. She is telling to the cabinet of the chiefs, that, you know, Suleiman has started his letter with Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Kindly look at the subtle point. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not telling himself that I said that Suleiman wrote this, or Suleiman says I wrote this. No, Sheba is telling his cabinet, her cabinet, she is briefing them that, you know, that Suleiman alayhi salam has started the letter with this phrase. And what does that mean? What does that mean? He will carry through every step, right from invitation to the diplomacy to the military conduct, all affairs according to the will of God. All further dealings would depend upon the philosophy formulated in the phrase Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, quite loud and clear. She tells her cabinet that, you know, that what will follow. And they very diplomatically say, they also got the point, what Sulaiman alayhi salam means and what Sheba is conveying. But apparently they were trying to hide their anxiety. They said, you know, that we are very brave, we can fight, but still, you know, that what can happen. The wars have unseen consequences, and what can happen to the wealthy people, to the elite of the people. So we leave the decision to you, indirectly saying that we go with you if you decide to go for the dialogue. We go with you. They are telling her, look at the force. The way Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has referred to this point, and the way Sheba is referring to Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, and the way the people of her cabinet get the point, and what the decision is made. When Sulaiman alayhi salam submitted his will to the will of God, how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to implement his will through Sheba, through Yemen, how it is going to be implemented from one state to the other state. The opening address of Sulaiman alayhi salam in the above manner demonstrated moral courage, strength of faith, and power of confidence, which in fact put fire in the arm to challenge the physical power of the infidel, who had gathered under the leadership of Sheba as a state. They accepted it. But there's a very subtle diplomatic way of Sheba to telling them, and diplomatic way of the Mullah, the chiefs, to accept it. If we compare this with the way uh, Emperor Heraclius dealt with the letter which he received from Prophet, peace be upon him, which is reported in Hadith. It is a very long Hadith. We find much difference the way Sheba presented it and the way Heraclius presented it. There is a lot of difference in the statecraft of these two leaders, Heraclius and Sheba. And Sheba diplomatically presented the point, and Malak also diplomatically responded at the point. And Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, the task which Sulaiman alayhi salam has submitted to the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was carried through. It also made it amply clear and easy for the addressee, Sheba, to understand that implementation of the writ, that is the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Shah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Izn of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by Sulaiman, peace be upon him, would be irresistible. They can't resist. Although Mala, the chiefs, her chiefs in the cabinet, they apparently say that you know that we are very powerful. But they are, in fact, pointing out at the same time in their statement that we can't resist it. You know that what happens to the elite. Shiba also is saying that you know there are unseen consequences of the wars and when they enter the cities. And that is also reflected when we try to go into the ayat which says when the ants are talking to each other, what happens? What's going to happen? It's irresistible. No, there is an ayat. This is the discussion which I've already placed before you. Sheba says that it is from Sulaiman alayhi salam. Sheba is telling. Why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling in this way? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala could have said that Sulaiman alayhi salam wrote a letter in my name. He wrote it with Bismillahir Rahmaanir Rahim. But no, Quran is not telling in this way. Quran is telling in a different way. Quran is telling that yes, of course, it's emphasizing. Quran is starting with emphasis that she informed. She said that it is from Sulaiman. And again, there is an emphasis in that ayat that she says that you know, of course, it is starting in the name of Allah, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. She understood the power of Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Starting with Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, the power which was behind Sulaiman alayhi salam. And Muhammad, peace be upon him, also followed the same practice. In his correspondence and invitation to the leaders and the rulers of the world at that time, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim is not only just an invocation. It is a matter of, as I had used the word in one of our earlier discussions, it is a matter of mannerism. Mannerism in what? Only in personal character, mannerism in culture. When it becomes the culture of the people. Mannerism, now we are talking at a third level, mannerism of the state. Practiced in his correspondence, invitation to the leaders of the world as a part of statecraft, state mannerism. In the opening address to Muhammad, peace be upon him, it was indicated right at the beginning that all the reading, Ikra, would be taking place as ordered only by the will of the Lord. Ikra, bi-ismi rabbika, bi-ismi Allah, bi-izni Allah. Everything is going to occur, happen, according to the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Bi-ismi rabbika. That is why in the beginning, Prophet, peace be upon him, used to start, Allahumma bi-ismi rabbika. The first invocation before Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim was revealed from the Prophet, peace be upon him, used to be Allahumma bi-ismi rabbika, because he was addressed in the first revelation, Ikra bi-ismi rabbika. Everything is going to take place, not only start, but it's going to happen bi-ismi rabbika. So he used to say, Allahumma bi-ismi rabbika, I'm starting every work till it's finished. Bismi Rabbika, my Rabb, my Rabb, Rabbi. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave this invocation, Bismi Allah. Say Bismillahir Rahmaanir Rahim. Of all the creation and everything is going to happen Bismi Rabbika. And the entire Quran is going to be revealed Bismi Rabbika. I think time is running. Rejection of superstition and polytheism. When we say Bismillahir Rahmaanir Rahim, it is not, today we have started the discussion, the psychological part of it. How Sulaiman as-salam dealt with psychology of Sheba. And we are discussing that part. Within that part, there is another point that it rejects the superstition. When you say Bismillah, then at the same time, how one can, if he is a believer, how can he contradict to believe in some other superstitious power? Any grave, any spirit, any soul, any other person, any other creation. This is the rejection of superstition and polytheism. And polytheism rejection, not only rejection as a creator of anything else being a creator, but also in Rububiyat also, that anything else cannot be Rabb. So it is, in fact, acceptance of Uluhiyat and Rububiyat both. Polytheists used to attribute different powers and functions to their different idols and gods. They believed that there is Rabb Hazal Bait, but there were 360 idols within that Khana, within Kaaba. And different tribes had different gods, and they had different beliefs in their idols, and they believed according to their belief that they did different things for them. So polytheists used to attribute different powers and functions to their different idols and gods. Now these were rejected. When we say Bismi Allah, Bismi Rabb, we are rejecting everything else. La ilaha. It is the cornerstone of La ilaha. When we say La ilaha and we say Bismi Allah, Allah is the as one, the only one. It was customary in Arabia at that time, before Islam, that people used to start everything with the name of their gods or idols. This was also a practice. The history shows, the culture of that time shows that they used to start with the names of their idols. Here you see on media every day you hear, even in masajid you hear, at many other places. I'm not taking the names of different sects who start their salutation, who start their work in the name of different people. I'm not naming those sects who are created by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But they have made them their Mawla. They have made them their giver. They have given them the status of God, idol. So people of Mecca at that time, people of Arabia at that time, they used to start their work in the name of their idols. They used to offer sacrifice in the name of their idols. But I'm not going into those details that how did they do that. There are ayat also that they used to do these things. When one starts with Bismillah, it means he negates and rejects all superstitions, idols, and so-called forces, and recognizes, accepts, and submits to one ever all-powerful, able, omnipotent, beneficent, merciful Allah. Why I've used only 3 or 4 attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But it includes all the attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, all the Asma'ul Husna of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is the crux of La ilaha illallah. There's nothing else except illallah. Bismi Allah, illallah, bismi Allah. This is another subtle aspect. Bismi Allah, it means bismi Allah, lillah, only Allah, nothing else, none else, no superstition. Bismi Allah. This is the part of La ilaha illallah. Bismi illallah. Bismi illallah. Bismillah, only for Allah. By this style and spirit of initiation, submits all his affairs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he shuns shirk and presents himself as the practicing believer in Allah. Now the question is, are we the practicing believers in Allah? Are we just offering prayers? We become the practicing believers. Some people say that he's a practicing Muslim because they apparently see that he's offering prayers. But are we practicing in the same sense, in the same meaning when we say Bismillah, Bismillah, and it means Bismillah, it means Bismillah. Are we practicing believers, practicing Muslims in that sense? Have we crossed the stage of Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim? Have we crossed the first stage? Have we crossed the first step of the ladder? Have we ascended the first step of the ladder? They used to call in the name of different names of the idols. They are given in the ayat. Everything is there in the ayat. I'm just trying to only bring out some points from the ayat. Nothing new. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that these are just names. They are not calling Bismillah. They are not calling Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I think we'll be entering into another subtle part of our discussion. I stop the discussion here, and Allah willing, we'll continue. If you also want to discuss, then in this manner, we'll continue. Otherwise, I'll try and conclude it even today or tomorrow, as you like, anytime. But I'm just pointing out towards different aspects of Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Allah willing, Allah may accept it. I leave it to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah may guide us all. Allah may help us all. Allah may accept from all of us. Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun. Wa salamun ala al-mursaleen. Walhamdulillahi rabbil alameen.
اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه. اللهم اهدنا فيمن هديت وعافنا فيمن عافيت وتولنا فيمن توليت وبارك اللهم لنا فيما أعطيت وقنا واصرف عنا شر ما قضيت. اللهم ادخلنا برحمتك في عبادك الصالحين. اللهم اخرجنا من ظلمات الجهل والوهم إلى نور العلم. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما. اللهم اجعلنا ممن يستمعون القول فيتبعون أحسنه. اللهم أوزعنا أن نشكر نعمتك التي أنعمت علينا وعلى والدينا وأن نعمل صالحا ترضاه. اللهم اصلح لنا في ذريتنا إنا تبنا إليك وإننا من المسلمين. Oh Allah, spread your mercy upon us, shower us with your blessings, increase our knowledge, grant us forgiveness, and reward us with the company of the prophets in the Firdaus al-A'la. Oh Allah, forgive our parents and all our friends and relatives who have passed away. Oh Allah, make their graves a garden from heaven and grant them the Firdaus al-A'la. Oh Allah, we have many of our friends and relatives who are sick. Oh Allah, grant all of them full and speedy recovery. Oh Allah, guide our children, protect them and make them righteous. Oh Allah, we ask with every name you have elected for yourself, that none of us leave this gathering, but his pains have been relieved, his worries have been removed, his debts have been paid, his weaknesses have been concealed, his sins have been forgiven, and his needs have been fulfilled. سبحان الله وبحمده عدد خلقه ورضا نفسه وزنة عرشه ومداد كلماته. سبحان الله وبحمده عدد خلقه ورضا نفسه وزنة عرشه ومداد كلماته. سبحان الله وبحمده عدد خلقه ورضا نفسه وزنة عرشه ومداد كلماته. والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على خير المرسلين. اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.